Good evening and welcome to our Sunday evening live presentation on the life and works of the late Father John O Donoghue. Many of you may be aware about this great man's spiritual journey and the incredible books that he has written, books that have touched the lives and hearts of so many in search of spiritual oneness from a Celtic traditional point of view. But first, I'm going to read to you, if I may, from John's website about John himself. And this was taken from the page on his website on John O Donoghue. And just bear with me, it's here. Here we go. John O Donoghue vanished from our sight on January the 4th, 2008. As a physical presence, but it is impossible to write about John as someone who was, he so thoroughly is. In the context of the immense presence of his absence, the following biographical facts and dates can serve only as time-bound points of orientation for those who wish to try and locate history. John was born in January 1956, the first of 4 children to Patrick and Josie O'Donoghue. At the age of 18, John entered the novitiate at Maynooth, where he completed his BA in English and Philosophy in 1977, and his degree in theology in 1980. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1982, and he received his MA in 1982. And in 1986, he began to work on a doctorate at the University of Tübingen in Germany. John was awarded his PhD in reinterpretation of the philosophy of Hegel. The prestigious Review of Metaphysics commended him for breaking new ground in our thinking about consciousness, with a richer and deeper notion of personhood. In John's words, Hegel struck me as someone who put his eye on the earth at a most unusual angle and managed to glimpse the circle toward which all things aspire. And by 1990, John had returned to Ireland, where he continued his priestly duties, as well as beginning postdoctoral work on the 13th century philosopher and mystic, Meister Eckhart. And in 1997, John's book Anam Cara was published and became an international bestseller. Eternal Echoes, Exploring Our Hunger to Belong, followed in 1998. And in 2000, John's collection of poetry, Connemara Blues, was published. At the end of 2000, John retired from public priestly ministry and devoted himself full-time to his writing and to a more public life of integrity and action. Speaking, advocating against social injustice, and inspiring the wealthy and powerful in our society to engage their own integrity in service of meaningful, positive change. His oft-quoted admonition that the duty of privilege is absolute integrity offers continuing inspiration for those working to open new possibilities of wholeness and grace in our visible world and beyond. John's book, Divine Beauty, The Invisible Embrace, was published in 2003, followed by Benedictus, a book of blessings late in 2007, just 2 months before his sudden and unexpected death. This last book was released in the United States under the title "To Bless the Space Between Us" in the spring of 2008. And John is buried in Cregagh Cemetery in his beloved west of Ireland. The wellspring of his creativity was lively and strong to the very last day, and his legacy of as yet unpublished works is being carefully minded and nurtured towards emergence by his beloved family. An amazing man, and a man of our time. But I'd like to share with you a word from John's family. Together as a family, we have come to view as a blessing, not a burden, the safeguarding of the spirit of John's work and the proper God-parenting to all the unpublished work that he left behind, all the anxious requests by people whom he had helped and who had heard him speak, cried of an urgency and a fear that all the wisdom and healing power of his words would not continue. We hear the oft-repeated mantra, "It is so badly needed in the world of today." Anyone who's been touched by death and has tasted the lonely, bitter tears of grief knows that it is a harrowing and horrible thing to have to go through the personal items of a dead loved one. But in the case of John's family, John left them a near library of writings which has started to unfold its treasure. John had an amazing intellect which could never allow itself to become a prisoner of its own ivory tower. He had a beautiful, wild soul that he showered with love and attention. And all of this, together with his great respect for language as expression and his sensitive eye, led him on the journey toward poetry as being his best loved medium of expression and conversation. I think that poetry must have been very frustrated at all the time he spent under the spell of theology and philosophy. Poetry was an impatiently awaiting vehicle eager to transport his fluency to our starved ears. So, fellow humanoids, as he would say himself, it is an honor to present to the light, Swan Light, one of many of John's poems, yet to be published in a collection, and in doing so remember him to his journey on his 2nd anniversary of his death, January the 4th, 2010. Wow. How blessed are we. And this is the poem from John's website, Swanlight. If I could say itself, January might brighten its syllables on the frost of these first New Year days whose cold is blue. Meanwhile, in this corner of its silence, a weak winter sun lowers down behind the moor that rises away from the lake, beyond reach of light, the shadowed water succumbs to this darkening of spirit that would deny the bog today's twilight. All of a sudden, something else breaks through to appear at the far end of the lake, into diagrams of white, uneven light. I have never seen white so absolute, and alone glistening in awkward form, dreaming across the water of a bright path. As it stirs and changes, I see what it is. Two swans have found the mirror in the lake, where a V of horizon lets light through. To make them light source and light shape in one, now they swim and fade through the windows of reed and disrobe the lake of apparition. I look and look into their vanishing, see nothing, departing that perfect ground. I knew I had been hungry for a blessing. Let's reflect on that. And we thank the family of the late Father John O Donoghue for allowing us to read that before being published in a collection. Amazing. Tonight I'm guided to read to you, if I may, from the wonderful book, one of many, To Bless the Space Between Us. And in the introduction, we read, there is a quiet light that shines in every heart. It draws no attention to itself, though it is always secretly there. It is what illuminates our mind to see beauty, our desire to seek possibility, and our hearts to love life. Without this subtle quickening, our days would be empty and wearisome, and no horizon would ever awaken our longing. Our passion for life is quietly sustained from somewhere in us that is wedded to the energy and the excitement of life. This shy inner light is what enables us to recognize and receive our very presence here as a blessing. We enter the world as strangers who all at once become heirs to a harvest of memory, spirit and dream that has long preceded us and will now enfold, nourish, and sustain us. The gift of the world is our first blessing. It would be infinitely lonely to live in a world without blessing. The word blessing evokes a sense of warmth and protection. It suggests that no life is alone or unreachable. Each life is clothed in raiment of spirit that secretly links it to everything else. Though suffering and chaos befall us, they can never quench that inner light of providence. While our culture is all gloss and pace on the outside, within it too often haunted and lost, the commercial edge of so-called progress has cut away a huge region of human tissue and webbing that held us in communion with one another. We have fallen out of belonging. Consequently, when we stand before crucial thresholds in our lives, we have no rituals to protect, encourage, and guide us as we cross over into the unknown. For such crossings, we need to find new words. What is nearest to the heart is often farthest from the word. And this book, To Bless the Space Between Us, excuse me, wow, it's an attempt to reach into that tenuous territory of change that we must traverse when a threshold invites us. And there we're going to stay and resume it hopefully tomorrow. A powerful, powerful book, a book of blessings by none other than a great man, the late John O Donoghue. We give thanks for the inspiration that the late Father John shares with us in his work. And his work will live on in you and me the many times or more times we continue to read his works. I've read this particular book many times, and each time I'm truly blessed to find another nugget of wisdom. Thank you for being here. And together we give thanks to God for all that John has left us. May his soul rest in peace. Amen.